Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The big Season 3 update for Modern Warfare 2 dropped yesterday. Some new maps into the game we shall unfortunately have to discuss, but also some changes to the weapon balancing. The Scar was initially buffed, the pros thought. Turns out though it was nerfed, in addition to part of the Vaznev being nerfed as well. But the movement changes we expected yesterday did come true. Shotzzy's going to be loving these ones, but Cellium believes that slide cancelling might even now be returning to the game. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's dive straight in then, because I saw this discussion here from Bryce yesterday. What if the new Season 3 maps were good for the CDL? I don't know that Jacob L says, and I thought as well, it's probably too late now. Regardless of what happens here in the Major 4 cycle, the chances of another map pool change before Major 5 and Champs are unlikely. I feel like the more we've played Expo, and especially with, unfortunately for ranked play players, Fortress Control returning to ranked play unexpectedly last night, we'll discuss in a second. But I'm of the belief that Expo is significantly better than Fortress, but even with that being the case, it took a huge community reaction for the pros to actually change their mind on that one, whether Expo could come in for Search and Destroy over another map for Stage 5. Maybe that's the only possible thing to happen here, because I don't expect any new maps to come in until next season's situation, and we don't even know what maps we're going to have for next year at this point. But, you know, fundamentally, if this was going to happen, we'd need some of these maps to be rather good. But these are the maps in question. So Black Gold is up there for one of the worst maps you're going to find. I watched a bit of gameplay. I don't know what they're thinking here. We've got a night vision map going on. It's an absolute shambles. The other map, though, that is worth mentioning is the Lighthouse map. This was the only one that I thought could potentially be viable. It's a night map. Reminded people a bit of a state, I suppose. And last year, Berlin was a pretty good map, and it was a night vision. Well, not a night vision map, but just like a nighttime map in general. So maybe there was some optimism. The issue is with it is it's absolutely terrible. It's basically hide and seek simulator. And even to cap it all off, look at this setup here. So if you guys played Hardpoint on this, if you have, like, I kind of feel bad for you, but one of the hardpoints is on a slightly submerged kind of shipwreck in the sea. So it's not even on the island. You have to jump into the water and, like, swim over to this boat where the hardpoint is. There's no cover anyway. Like, there's a couple of barrels I guess you could try and hide behind. But, I mean, yeah, Infinity Ward obviously having managed to produce one map last time out that might potentially be competitively viable at Expo, they've gone back to their basics right here, and they've produced an absolute bagger. So when you see this, you're like, yeah, no chance. It's absolutely short. So yeah, congrats to Infinity Ward. They've done it again. Another thing they managed to do, which I'm not sure if this is Treyarch's mistake or Infinity Ward's mistake or whatever it is, but Fortress Control is back in the rotation. This, of course, unintentional, and thankfully it was confirmed by Treyarch afterwards that this is, you know, unintentional. We're aware of this, and we'll be correcting the playlist map pool soon. So, you know, good news, I suppose, that Fortress isn't meant to be back, but there were some other unintentional changes as well. I don't know how this stuff happens so often, but we'll have to dive into them. So this was the big discussion here that Zaps pointed out to me, and others did as well. The Tag 56 headshot damage increased, and this was a big surprise to many, because surely the TAC doesn't need to get any better than it already is, especially when compared to the other ARs. The TAC is already one of the best, so, you know, buffing it and not changing anything else seems a little bit strange, to be honest, especially when you see the Vaznev got its headshot damage decreased. Now, this tweet says, because it's correct up to this date, the TAC has had its headshot damage decreased and the Vaznev also headshot damage decreased. Initially, though, this said increased on the patch notes, which made a lot of the pros think that indeed the TAC was getting buffed and the Vaznev was getting nerfed with a reduction in the headshot multiplier. To me, the headshot multiplier should be tiny anyway. I remember back in, like, Black Ops 2, when they actually made a good Call of Duty game, the headshot multiplier was very minimal, because in this game there isn't really that much skill gap between hitting the headshot and not hitting the headshot. I don't think it should make that much difference in Call of Duty, and we've seen in the past the fact that, you know, when you get recoiled up to the head and you've got, like, even high caliber in Black Ops 3 or something, you just get melted, and it was very unfortunate. So a reduction in the headshot multipliers, I think, is a good idea in general, but initially it said the Vaznev was getting nerfed in this aspect, but the TAC, the only two weapons that are used in competitive, was getting buffed in this aspect. That then changes, we'll see in a second. The heavy barrels, they're also relevant for the TAC, have got their ADS speed penalty reduced somewhat, which apparently has been a pretty big buff to the TAC. So despite getting nerfed in this way, it has been buffed in some other way with the heavy barrels that people do like to use. But also the Vaznev is better as well, because the hipfire spread accuracy has been increased. So we've seen lots of interesting hipfire moments this season with the Vaznev, notably Simp versus Pred, Game 5, Round 11, back at Major 3, Embassy Search and Destroy. Simp pops the dead silence, hipfires Pred when he had like 15 kills. Unfortunately, unfortunate way to lose the game. So, you know, that's now even better now for the Vaznev. So, effectively, the TAC, I would say, and the Vaz have probably both got better somewhat, which is, okay, it's not going to change the weapon meta dramatically, but I know that already, as soon as there's changes to the ARs and the SMGs, everyone is starting to hit the timeline about, oh, the ARs got buffed, the SMGs got buffed, we're so unlucky, we're so lucky, all this type of stuff. Now, we will get back to the movement changes as well, because that is a big one, but we'll talk about the weapons here first. So, some immediate reaction here, understandably, from Zuma. They buffed the Scar, and, you know, Simp's like, what are they actually playing in the replies? Turns out they kind of didn't, but still, they kind of buffed the heavy barrel, so maybe it balances out. I know there's been some mixed opinions on this, but still, a headshot multiplier getting nerfed might not be a massive deal, to be honest. And I think Exclusive Ace looked into some of these changes and said that the reality is they're relatively slight in terms of how things go. The movement, though, is actually quite significant. Now, as Ghosty says, thankfully the God Gun got nerfed and the Pea Shooter got buffed. So, of course, all the AR players, such as Ghosty, are going to say that the God Gun is the Vaznev and the Pea Shooter is the Scar, right? And obviously the other way around, if you're an SMG player, it's just always how it is. But I would be surprised if the reality is that anything is going to change significantly here. And also this from Frosty, though, right? Hamza Glow Frosty, as I think he was now known, or maybe he's known as again, oh man, the TAC feels so good now since it pulls up instantly. They should have done this months ago. So yeah, it seems like some good reports, and maybe Doug's pretty happy about it as well as an AR player now for the Boston Breach. And even as Clay says, making fun of the SMGs, God Gun got buffed with, you know, the no brain, kind of whatever's going on there. So, yeah, basically just roasting SMG players for trying to pretend that the TAC was the God Gun all along, but the reality is that both of these guns are pretty similar, if not marginally better in both regards. And even as Arcitys says, subs are geeking. I saw a lot of complaining, but let's not forget they got better hipfire accuracy now, so they're even better as well. So, very interesting situation. And even as Octane says, AR's a blessed man. So he takes the opposite approach, but yeah, some interesting mixed reactions as you'd expect for a situation like this. Parasite, though, says, because initially it said, as we saw, headshot damage increased for the TAC and decreased for the Vaznev. And yet another bit of inconsistency here from Infinity Ward with having the D lowercase, but the I here is uppercase. So, you know, don't know what they're playing out there, must fix. But as Parasite said at the time, this is an overreaction. This means headshots downrange mean more. Doubt it will give any two-shot, two-bullet TAC kills, but still it was a similar story. So I think what he's saying is that the reaction to this change was an overreaction rather than because he didn't really think it was that big of a deal, and probably having them turn it around the other way, it's still not a massive deal. As Infinity Ward says, headshot damage on the TAC was incorrectly labeled as increased. For clarity, headshot damage was decreased, and this change has been reflected. So this is a W for Infinity Ward. But again, how do you make this mistake? How does the patch note, like how are the patch notes not checked over by someone to say, actually, this is just straight out wrong? So, I mean, another Infinity Ward classic, but I suppose they've done the right thing. I did want to come back to, though, of course, the other changes to the movement. And to me, this is probably the more crucial one for the way the gameplay is going to feel and the way it's going to look. So the diving fire delay has been reduced. So this is what they mean by what we discussed in yesterday's video by the fluidity of the movement. So when you dive, you can now fire faster than you could before, and the sliding speed has been slightly increased. So changes to sliding, and okay, slide cancelling isn't really a thing in this year's game. It's not designed so that that can be a thing. Infinity Ward decided to change up the mechanics somewhat from what we've seen over the last few years. But the dive now is back in this game, of course, and it wasn't really so relevant. There were occasions where diving out of a window could be viable, but if you dived, by the time you landed, pulling your gun up, it was too slow, and it wasn't really so viable. Even a guy like Shotzzy didn't use the dive mechanic all that often. But as Parasite says, Shotzzy seeing the dive to fire time decrease in Modern Warfare 2, this guy is going to be flying about all over the shop, and I would not be surprised at all if this is exactly the case. So I think Shotzzy, when he gets on, either, I don't know if he played yesterday, but certainly today, he's going to have a good time, I'm sure, with this new movement, because a lot of the pros and fans seem to be enjoying this one, and this is a global change for Warzone and regular Modern Warfare 2, and this is just what it looks like here. I'm not exactly sure whose stream this is, unfortunately. All I can tell, he's like, he's got this cat thing in the corner, which is like responding to it, the way he's talking, which is pretty funny. But just check out the slide here. The slide is definitely marginally faster, right? Like, and you can also bring up your gun a little bit more than before. I wouldn't say slide cancelling is back necessarily, but just the fact that the speed is increased and you seem to slide a bit further and longer does maybe make that more viable. So, and also look at the dive, right? When you dive and then you decide to go and, you know, stand up and shoot again, it is definitely quicker than before as well. So, yeah, I would say that these are quite significant changes, especially to the movement merchants we have in the scene. If you thought it was hard facing up against Shotzzy before, then it's going to to probably be even worse now, right? I can't imagine what it would have been like back in the jetpack days dealing with these guys. Thankfully for the competitors competing in the jetpack era at the time, there was no Shotzzy, there was no aBeZy and these other players old enough to compete in those titles at the time. But just the one time he dives here, I just wanted to mention because I think he dives in a second, and I'll just share it for you guys again on screen. Yeah, it's right about here where it does seem like the gun is ready to go much quicker than before. So very interesting to see how this goes. Also wanted to share these thoughts though from Cellium, where he's kind of looked at these updates and he's thought, actually, damn, the sliding might well be back to a certain degree.
Anything to slide, dolphin can't, or the whatever it's called, dolphin dive, and I think just like the feel of like the ATS. I'm not sure they're changing like the sprint, but I know for a fact they're changing the slide and the dolphin dive, like more faster, I think.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's gonna be more like more doing, they said in the patch notes.
Really?
Yeah.
So like slide canceling could be back?
I don't know, it might be.
So definitely tweet your thoughts on that in the comment section below. We were kind of wondering yesterday, will this be a Shotzzy buff or nerf, depending on what they do with the movement, but it does seem to be a relatively substantial change. Okay, it's acceptable that Infinity Ward are trying to do something to improve their title, but yeah, if Shotzzy was frying before, he's certainly going to be frying after this one, I would imagine. Obviously, people were looking back on the movement back in the day, even as Chrome says, like, well, Call of Duty, what they used to say in 2015 for Black Ops 3, the movement system is the backbone of combat. Our new movement system is a fluid precision chain movement system, the philosophy of guns up, persistent weapon control, omnidirectional movement. I remember when they said this actually, and it was a very exciting moment at the time, and they nailed the movement, of course, in Black Ops 3, but nowadays it's not quite the same. Just one final thing to mention for you guys on Shotzzy before we close out the video. Didn't see a clip of this actually, but I know that he was talking about his best ever teammates. He has said before at some point that Crim6 was his best ever teammate for one specific year. During Modern Warfare 2019, Crim was unreal, and Shotzzy was giving him a lot of credit, but in Cold War wasn't quite the case. So he gives his top 3 teammates to iLLeY number 3, Scump number 2, and then Huke number 1. And this is quite telling, right? I know the whole Pred discussion, all this is still going on and will continue to go on, but if Shotzzy reckons that his best ever teammate, the one that he's had the most success with and just enjoys playing with the most and gets the best out of his Huke, then, it's very interesting going forwards. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
What seed are you guys right now, Dan?
The 1.
No. Overall standings.
3.
3? What are we? We're 7, close to 6. I might just actually tell my team to get 6 seeds so I can verse you first round of champs.
Think so?
Yeah, I actually might just tee it up. I might like try to get the points.
Damn, you wanna do like a crazy losers run then, huh?
No, I want to do like I just want to like just show you like how it's done at champs. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Yeah, but
because champs is a different beast, Daniel.
Do they call me like Danimal the Land?
It's a different beast, brother.
They call me Danimal the
When you hear me roaring, if you hear me roaring after map 1.
Top 4 at a CDL champs, bro.
Huh?
I still haven't gotten outside the top 4 at a CDL champs.
You haven't got
Only
your
top 4s.
No, in all seriousness, no, that is facts. Like, I ain't never been to no champs,
That's what I'm saying. Champs is a different beast, bro. Like
I know,
after
bro.
map 1, you see Fortress Hardpoint. You guys have been slim, and everyone gets a champs. You get like, what the f***'s going on? AJ just we can't kill him. 40 kills,
GG, bro.
and then you just look over to your right, and I'm roaring. I throw my controller at your head.
40, you're gonna have 40, but you're still gonna lose.
I have my backup control. I have my backup controller, and I just throw it across the stage. It hits one of you in the side of the head, and then it's S&D map 2.
What happens if that happens, bro? Like,
It doesn't matter. The ref starts grabbing me. I shove him off. I sit back on my setup. We load into map 2.
Bro, if I get hit by your controller in the head, bro, we're hopping on the Arctic mid-series, bro.